Welcome to Yellow Brick Road. I am Jordan, and today we're gonna react to another interview with Kshama Sawant because I'm curious, and I think the person that's gonna be questioning her or talking to her, I guess, is Glenn Greenwald. And the reason why I find that interesting is because Glenn has some kind of favoritism, towards like the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens of the world, and also the left leaning people, the Jimmy Dores or whoever the fuck, right? So because of that, kind of internet celebrity status thing, he might ask some interesting questions. I'm curious to hear her answer. Before I get started, don't forget to share support. Hopefully, donate to all the links in the description box. Also, please check out the Discord link if you want to join that. We're in that Discord right now. All pins are welcome, and obviously, everything I show you will be linked in that same description box, including this. Uh, we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet this out yesterday. Yeah, and you can see the picture there. Tucker and Marjorie, and I think it's AI looking, but I think it is AI. I don't know. Joe Kent, Thomas Massey, the other people I have no fucking clue who the fuck they are. And I'm not gonna read her caption. Uh, well, actually, I'll read this part. The movement has begun because of the past idea of Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene leading the charge of a third party. To break away from the GOP and the MAGA right, whoever the fuck it is. But this guy up here, Sam Husseini, probably captures more of what I would be thinking and saying in response to this. He says, "Yeah, who could have guessed that Trump was a con man? He's just a guy who did tons for Israel in his first term, talked about taking Syria's oil, killed a major Iranian general, appointed freedom-hating Bushite Federalist Society tools to the Supreme Court, etc." And yes, there's plenty more. Uh, Neither you nor Massey moved to impeach Trump or Biden for their illegal wars. Also true. You actually tried to impeach Biden for finally getting out of Afghanistan. There's a pro-peace party on the ballot now. It's the Greens. That part, that's his political leanings. That's not my shit. Fuck politics. But just for observational reasons, like, that's a good point. But unfortunately for Sam, or people like Sam, or myself even, unfortunately, fanboys and fangirls are fanboys and fangirls, as in simple kindergarten style PR, whether it's authentic or not, will capture minds. And these people here, at least the ones I named, right, are on the winning side of history at this moment. In the future, uh, who knows? You'll probably get fucked over, honestly, if you go this direction with these people, especially Joe Kent. Joe Kent's like openly, like, kind of like really pro war. Like, he's almost Bush, like, to me. Like, he's almost George W. Bush. Uh, but right now he's saying, yo, Israel's doing bad stuff. So thus he'll get a fucking pass from the audience. And it'll take them years before they like, wait a minute, Joe Kent might not be that good of a person. Or Joe Kent might be an idiot, not good at politics or dealing with warfare and foreign policy. We saw Thomas Massey get fucking robbed. What did he do? He said, yo, guys, it's not, listen, the guy won fair and square, even though people who were not voting before showed up out of nowhere to vote against him. And then once again, the millions of dollars of campaign money given to his opponent. And I forgot his opponent's name. Was it Ed Galrain? Galrain? No one knew how to say his fucking name. Like, who's this guy? And all of a sudden, he's winning a House seat over one of the most popular candidates or popular politicians in the country out of nowhere. And Thomas had no questions about it. Maybe he's just being humble there, but worthy of question. Why don't you fight back on that one? Almost like the same thing with like Bernie Sanders, right? Like, hey, you just got blatantly cheated. Why aren't you fighting back? No, they won fair and square. I endorse Hillary Clinton. Thanks, Bernie, for nothing. Tucker, I mean, since like off rep, right? And this goes with Marjorie Taylor Greene and a lot of them. Maybe less so Thomas Massey. I don't know the other people once again, but maybe less so with Thomas Massey. But for these three in the back here, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and Joe Kent, you guys helped get this fucking orange oaf in office. Like, I mean, like, you worked hard and campaigned and helped him out to get there. And now you want us to follow you for the fucking answers of how to fix the orange oaf's fucking problems that he's creating or part of creating. Now you want to be the solution to the thing you helped manifest in the first place. That's fucking ridiculous on its face. And yes, as Sam Husseini said, these things are blatantly here. It's the first fucking term. The first term, you could see what was happening, and somehow I guess they fell for it again. Although I doubt it. I think it's more so they weren't. I don't know. With these three, I smell liar. I hope Thomas Massey's a decent gentleman. I don't know though. But these three, I smell a fucking liar. Smells like lying. I mean, I'll be fair to Marjorie Taylor Greene, dude. Maybe she's like Massey, kind of, and you know, maybe. But Tucker and Joe Kent, I'm pretty sure, are just full of shit artists. But either way, we'll move on. Now, this I guess came out very recently, and this lady, I don't even know her. What's her name? Melat Kiros. I think she's one of these like DSA or. Oh, you're echoing, dude.
My bad.
Might be one of these DSA or progressives or Justice Democrat style politician. And apparently she's going to give a horrendous answer. I have not heard this yet, but let's see where she goes. Here we go.
Ever been to Israel or anywhere in the region? Would it change your mind or open your perspectives if you did?
I'm sure it would, right? You know, part of the work that we've been doing here as well is having conversations with, you know, the Jewish community, specifically the Zionist Jewish community, to, you know, better understand different perspectives, different positions, different experiences. You know, again, my values have always been rooted in protecting dignity and safety for every single person, especially as it relates to these inalienable things about our religion or ethnicity or our culture. And my greatest concern right now is that the state of Israel is losing support all across the political spectrum here in the US. And I believe that
Why does that concern you?
I think we're leaving a vacuum on the left and the progressive wing to speak to this criticism in a way that is in line with our values, to where people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who are raging anti-Semites and white supremacists and Christian nationalists, are...
I'm sorry. Candace Owens is a white supremacist? Sorry, whatever. All right, here we go.
And white supremacists and Christian nationalists are pretending to care about Palestinian safety when really it's just masking their overt hatred for Jewish people.
You're singing my song.
And if we are not presenting our vision of what we believe in with our democratic values that extends not just to the Palestinian people, but to the Israeli people and to the Jewish people, you know, that land has a distinctly Jewish character, a distinctly Christian character, a distinctly Muslim character.
Yeah.
It's a land that has seen bloodshed for centuries. And we, I think, are doing a disservice to the people of that region by not offering our progressive vision in a way that isn't immediately swatted down as, you know, bigoted or anti-Semitic. And that's going to require a lot of conversations, a lot of hard conversations. There will be things that we learn, things that there will be missteps and mistakes made. But as long as we're continuing that conversation, we are at the very least presenting an actual vision in line with our values that can combat and hopefully silence a lot of the anti-Semitism that's coming from the right, because we're leaving that vacuum wide open right now if we are afraid to have these conversations.
One of the things...
Okay, now that's actually interesting. Honestly, in just words, a lot of it I agree with. In words, right? Once again, I don't know this lady. I'm just finding her now, I guess, because people are complaining about her, which is like, you know, my specialty. Complain about shit. But yeah, in words, I'm not fully against this, except for, you know, raging anti-Semites, this type of racism and that shit, which is the political blah 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 of identity politics, whatever the fuck, right? But the idea, like, yeah, these guys are taking advantage of a topic to once again, I don't think it's for white nationalism or anti-Semitism. I think they're doing it as I think it's mind melting for the sake of the United States apparatus. That's what I think it is. It's to get people to buy into dumb fuck policies in the future, right? You make your investment now by screaming Israel every 5 seconds, and then you come back years later and be like, "Hey guys, we should do this now. Let's go this direction. Let's start a third party," as you see Tucker and all that stuff, right? Like, I don't buy them as authentic. I really don't. I leave room for it, right? Because they're human beings as well. I leave room for that, but I'm not buying it. And I don't think the reason is anti-Semitism or white nationalism or something like that. Although you'll hear narratives from Tucker where it's like leans that direction, 100%, which is worth pointing out as well. But yeah. Now, with that said, once again, in words, I was like, okay, this is not bad in words. But the other side is like, you're just saying this because you're a politician playing political games and you're doing PR for yourself by, giving leeway. Like I'm sure people are used to hearing that stuff and they're like, oh my God, this politician's full of shit. They're actually just going to fund Israel the entire time. Or the AOC style, right? Defensive weapons, quote unquote, while they're genociding people, right? That's also worthy of looking at and considering. And right now, I'm not one side or another. I'm at the point of leaving this human being with their own fucking, agency. And hopefully she shows me what she's about, right? Pause. But the initial parts, I'm like, I almost want to like recycle the beginning again because I'm like, what are you guys crying about again? If they hear any type of, hey man, Israelis are human too, if they hear anything sounding like that, they're like, fuck you, you're on the wrong side of history. You need to do like Tucker does and blame Israel for every fucking thing. Right? Did you slip on a banana peel? Israel probably planted it there. But I let me play the beginning again because I'm like, hey guys, I get people are caught up in this thing of Israel, 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 but listen to the words and you tell me what you're hearing. Let's play like a little bit of the beginning again. Here we go.
Ever been to Israel or anywhere in the region? Would it change your mind or open your perspectives if you did?
I'm sure it would, right?
I mean, I don't get it. Like, what are you gonna do with Jordan? Like, I can go to Israel if I fucking want. Well, I don't know what the government might think, but you know what I mean. Like, I can walk anywhere I want to. I'm immune to fucking bullshit. I'm immune to fucking corruption. So I can make a trip to Israel and talk to people like, hey, what's going on over here? Let me ask questions. Instead of outright going, they're bad, right? I'm sure there's fucking farmers and fucking mechanics, like people that have nothing to fucking do with their government shit. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are also hardcore into the government shit, right? That's why I applaud people like Abby Martin, like going over there, asking, not going over there for PR moves, not going over there for, to kiss a wall or whatever the fuck these guys do, and like, kissing the ring and shit like that, or doing political bullshit games. Like going over there, they're like, hey, what are people actually saying? And she found some very crude people. But there's others that are not crude like that are not brainwashed and bought into the idea of, listen, these Arabs got to go. Not everyone's like that. It's just by law of averages, not everyone's going to be like that. So thus, why not, if you had the chance, why not find out? But people are gonna be like, so look, she wants to visit Israel, see? Like, not good enough to call someone like, oh, you're bad or full of shit. I get why you're saying that, but it's not enough for me to do that because, I try to treat everyone fairly. I try my best. Let's keep playing. Just play a little bit more.
Part of the work that we've been doing here as well is having conversations with, the Jewish community, specifically the Zionist Jewish community, to, better understand different perspectives, different.
Okay, there's the next one. Oh my God, you're talking to Zionists? Oh my God. For me, I'll talk to a Zionist. What about it? That's when I turn and look at them like, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? You're Zionist, man. I'm Jordan. Nice to meet you. Who the fuck are you? Where are you from? Like that, like, this is the thing that's where it's like, we're fucking this up. You have a situation, right? That's been taking place. I mean, it's been taking place for a very long time, but the overt version of genocide in Gaza, the subjugation of the West Bank, like these things have been issues for a very long time. But the most recent one is very hyped up, right? With Gaza. Um, I, once again, I understand people being like on edge and like, yo, if you say anything nice about these motherfuckers, you know, fuck them. They're on the wrong side. They're on the bad side. But I also see a lot of political fucking posturing. Like the righteous answer is to behave like, hey, you said you're going to talk to Zionists? You're fucking canceled. You're done. The weird phenomenon. Very weird. And actually unfortunate. Very unfortunate. I would think if you wanted to find answers on things, you talk to people. But hey, what is actually your position? But also be like cerebral about it. I see a lot of laziness, in my humble opinion, to where they got something that's so blatantly bad happening over there and somehow fucking it up. It's a situation where it's like, that's obviously, there's no way around it. It's obviously bad. You know, more than half the people killed over there are, well, way more than half. Sorry, I fucked that up. The overwhelming majority that are dying over there are civilians. And then add to that, when it comes to society and the way people view things, I think they're all equal, but, you know, people see like women and children and they take up more than half of the innocent people being killed. So people have a like, boom, there's no way around it. That's bad. And somehow we're taking that and start playing political games with it. How do we fuck this one up? How do you deal with Zionism without talking to Zionists? Make that make sense to me. It's almost like they'd rather be. I swear to God, I think a lot of these people are just straight up audience captured, like straight up. And they're doing dances for the fucking crowd instead of like, yo, feet in the ground. Let's get shit done. Let's get the righteous thing done. Let's go there. And once again, I don't know this lady, but maybe my perspective is, hey, we stopped that. First, we stopped the fucking bombings, the genocide. We get food in there. We make sure people are taken care of. Regular people. We take care of them first. After that, now let's start talking about things. So I'm not, against action or whatever the fuck. And I get how bad it is. Been covering for a while now. I get it. But once, the blatant bad thing, like that's the first thing you take care of. Stop that thing right there. But after that, I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to anyone. Zionists, whoever the fuck, Israelis, whoever. If they show themselves to be full of shit, then I'll be like, yeah, this person's full of shit, in my opinion. If they show to be genuine, I'll be like, yeah, I think they're genuine. I don't care what fucking colors they fly. Whatever flag they fucking wave. Because that's what the good people are supposed to do. Is be fair and honest and genuine with everyone and anyone. If George W. Bush ran out in the middle of the street, dropped to his knees, looked to the sky, started praying and crying, I'm so sorry, I fucked up. I did some bad stuff in my life. I'd be like, hey man, let's talk about it. These little dancers on the internet, these little audience captured dancing motherfuckers, will yo, get him! Put handcuffs on, beat him up, get him out of here. Like he's already captured. He's already on his knees, crying and shit. Now we can just talk. You're not in office anymore. You need to account for everything you did. let's do it in a thorough, authentic way. Not for the fucking applause of the audience, like a lot of these dummies fucking do out here. This should have been a video on its own, man. It's actually taken up a decent amount of time. I'll move on, but I think the point is made. I'm listening to this. I'm like, what's so like? It sounds relatively sensible in words. I do get the kind of the paranoia about it of like she's doing it like she's gonna kiss the ring. She's gonna be one of those guys where they disappoint us. They're AOC type. I get that thinking pattern for sure. But in reality, it's like, yeah, why not say like, listen, these ideas, I'm with that, but this person could be full of shit. Pretty simple to me. But let's move on. This is kindergarten. That should be so easy to think of and like easy to come up with. Not much of a intellectual struggle with this, with what I'm saying here. Be fucking obvious. But apparently we're dumb as rocks and doomed to repeat our own mistakes over and over and over again. We're doomed for it, aren't we? Unfortunately. But all right, let's move on. Now let's hear from Kshama. Once again, I'm curious what Glenn Greenwald asks her, and she, listen, this lady can talk. Like she can just go and go and go, which I actually appreciate because it comes off as more authentic to me. She could be full of shit, but it seems more authentic because she's just saying every idea that pops into her mind. She's just letting it fly. Like, we need more of that. We need more of that. Not this cookie cutter shit because we like, oh my God, this audience is going to leave. The video's not 15 minutes long. It's 3 hours long. The audience is going to leave. No. Like, well, guess what? There's no other fucking way around it. If your points and your idea and your purpose is like, hey, I want to make the world a better place, you can't crunch it down to a time limit. Some things will only take 15 minutes. Some things might take 5 hours or fucking days or years. That's called, like, you got to be real about it. If you're here for like, man, listen, I only had, why isn't your video shorter, man? I need shorter videos. Then you're not here seriously then. You're here for entertainment. And Jordan doesn't do backflips. Let's play. Glenn Greenwald, Kshama Sawant. Let's hear it. There we go. Oh, my fucking intro.
Pathological.
Okay, fucking Adobe
The
intro.
9th Congressional District of Washington State represents all sorts of pathologies and toxicities in our American political life. It has been represented in the House of Representatives for 3 full decades now by a very obscure yet powerful House Democrat named Adam Smith, who, through his position as the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, has probably exerted more influence on American foreign policy than arguably any other member of the House Democratic Caucus.
Just really quickly, I want to say this. Remember the breaking point, the Ryan Grimm guy, right? Ryan Grimm and kind of the breaking points people, but mainly Ryan Grimm, where he's like, man, you don't even have a following. Like, why should I be like spending time on you? And now that you interviewed her, now that the crowd got pissed off, it's like, yo, interview her, you idiot. She represents what you claim to be about, right? She represents your values to a strong degree. So you should fucking give her time and give her publicity. And they folded and they're like, okay, we'll do it then. Fine. Leave me alone. They do it. And now guess what? Her name's spreading more and more. Look at that. Someone that you said had no following now has a following. And you could have helped with that a lot earlier on instead of waiting for your audience to scream at you about it, which is also cowardly. Honestly, it's cowardly and it's content creation bullshit. Let's play. Here we go.
Than arguably any other member of the House Democratic Caucus. The district represents a very, very blue district. It often typically votes 70-30 for the Democratic presidential nominee, as it did in 2024 when 68% of the people voted for Kamala Harris. So it's a very blue district. And yet Adam Smith has been basically throughout his entire career, representative of the worst parts of the Democratic establishment, extremely pro-war, voted for the Iraq War in 2003, all sorts of the worst war and terror policies of Bush and Cheney throughout that entire presidency, constantly voting for war, extremely pro-Israel, has been funded by AIPAC and Boeing and the military-industrial complex, and just generally serves the same agenda that the corporatist, militarist faction of the Democratic Party serves, despite representing a very liberal district, including large parts of Seattle, one of our most left liberal cities. He has barely faced
Well, they voted for Kamala, Glenn. So how strong are they? On this so-called left-leaning thing, is it strictly economics? Because when I see both parties, it's warfare, and more warfare. So war was never an issue for these guys, I guess, until now, maybe. Well, we'll see. But here we go.
One of our most left liberal cities. He has barely faced a meaningful election in the last 30 years. This year, however, he is running against somebody who refuses to become part of the Democratic Party. She's Kshama Sawant, and she has had great electoral success in Seattle, has won 4 different elections in Seattle, including 3 times getting elected to the Seattle City Council as part of a left-wing socialist or independent line, refusing to become part of the Democratic Party. She's currently running against Congressman Smith in an effort to unseat him, and again, is not part of DSA, not part of the Democratic Party, has critiques of both the SA and the Democratic Party in terms of its relationship with one another. I've always found her to be one of the more interesting political figures, one of the most independent-minded. She has her own political trajectory, focuses heavily on the working class, and believes in a class-based, not a race-based or social issue-based politics. And it's always interesting to hear what she has to say. It's unclear how much of a meaningful challenge she'll be able to pose. She recently was interviewed for about 45 minutes on Breaking Points by my former Intercept colleague Ryan Grimm and my friend Crystal Ball, where they quite adversarially questioned her about why she refuses to be part of the Democratic Party, why she doesn't join DSA instead of running on an independent line. Prior to that, Crystal had interviewed Congressman Smith, also in a very adversarial way. We had scheduled her to be interviewed before the Breaking Points interview. I ended up having to travel and wasn't able to do the interview, so we rescheduled it, and that gave us the opportunity to talk in the wake of this Breaking Points interview about some of the things she said there, some of what wasn't covered, some issues, including her perspective on political changes on the American right regarding Israel and war, and even corporatism, and whether she sees that as a positive trend, whether she could work with it. Also, the reasons why the Democratic Party and the American left have had trouble attracting working class voters. Like I said, find her a very interesting political voice. Her election is on August 4th, and I find our conversation interesting, both about American politics generally, the Democratic Party in particular, and especially her specific race against the kind of congressman who's very little known, kind of like Joe Crowley, who AOC took out in 2018, and yet exerts far more power than the better known members of the Congress. Here's our interview with her.
And just for future reference, because Jesse linked this the other day, I might combine it. I might do a very recent interview with AOC and Emma Vigeland, but also go back to Glenn and AOC having an interview, just to juxtapose them and like, hey, is anything change here? Like, what's the difference here? I already listened to the Majority Report one, but the old one from when she first got elected or was maybe even running for office, that's where I'm curious if anything changed from back then to now. Maybe even a PR perspective. Like, are you being real here in PR now, or were you doing PR the entire time? Because I don't view her as such an authentic person at all. Also, side note and pause: is Glenn just always hungry or something? The way he talks, he sounds like he's salivating. Like he's like he has a jawbreaker. He's just salivating the entire time. Weird. Anyways, all right, here we go. Bro, just spit. Bro, pause.
Kshama, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me, Glenn.
Absolutely. So you and I have known each other for a long time. I was trying to remember, but I met you the first time when I was visiting Seattle. I think you were either running for city council or had already won and were on the city council, and I followed your career for quite a long time as well. And I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about your campaign and what's driving it and some of the decisions that you've made. But before we get into that, I want to start with the member of the House of Representatives whom you are challenging and trying to remove from the Congress, which is Congressman Adam Smith, who represents the 9th Congressional District of Washington, and he's done so for 30 years, since 1997. And one of the things I find interesting about him, I guess to the extent that anything is interesting about him, is that he's kind of simultaneously one of these members of Congress who's both completely obscure and not very well known, but also incredibly powerful. I think he reminds me a lot of Joe Crowley. Like when AOC won in 2018, one of the reasons why it was so shocking was because Joe Crowley was this very powerful member of the House leadership. And yet, I think most people, even people who pay attention to politics, were like, wait, who's Joe Crowley? You know, a lot of times the members of the House that gets the most attention aren't the most powerful. The ones who are most powerful are the ones who are meeting with lobbyists and Boeing and APAC and the like. So tell us a little bit about Congressman Smith and why you felt it so important to challenge him.
Yeah, first of all, Glenn, you're absolutely right that he is, it's a little bit like Joe Crowley. That's a good analogy. He is obscure. And I was just going to say that that's by design, because it actually makes him all the more powerful. It makes people like Adam Smith all the more powerful when they're not in the public eye. And it's not because he doesn't specifically want to seek limelight, but because it actually suits the establishment. It so suits the billionaire class, the war profiteers, billionaires and multimillionaires, to have people like him who are absolutely solidly on their side, and they are instigators of war and they really drive the agenda. So if you look at what he has done, even though it's invisible for the most part to ordinary people, his role in driving the war agenda has been absolutely central. Like you said, he's been in office for nearly 30 years. I mean, that's longer than many of my campaign volunteers have even been alive, because ours is a young campaign. And he's been in office for that long. And he is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. When the Democrats are in a majority in the House, he's the chair of the Armed Services Committee. Just to give you very quick examples of what he has done recently to illustrate that he is a driving force of the war agenda. He's not just an accidental yes vote on war. In December of last year, he co-authored the bill that gave Trump's wars $906 billion. And that's the money that Trump is using to carry out the war on Iran, the absolutely disastrous war that is going on in the Middle East. And in June of this year, he co-authored another bill to give Trump's wars $1 trillion, so trillion new dollars of war. And this bill also fuses, if this is passed by the Senate, it will fuse the US and Israeli militaries. It's already been passed by the House. So these are extremely dangerous warmongering and genocidal agendas that are represented by the bills that Adam Smith has himself co-authored. And I'll just add by saying that he, again, by design, by intention, he appears reasonable. Like when you listen to him speaking, he speaks in very even tones. He complains about the left being all agitated. He has called the anti-war movement left-wing fascists and demand that we be arrested. So it's all of this is political gaslighting against the anti-genocide movement, against the anti-war movement. And we have to turn the tables on this. And that is why I'm running against Adam Smith.
Yeah,
like I said, very long-winded, but I actually find that, I actually appreciate that. Now, could she be locked into political brain rot? Like where everything's political. Like, and when you eat cereal, it becomes political. Potentially, which would be something worrisome for me, but it's more so if you're authentic, though, you're being real, that's what you believe in. That is way more needed in the whole political world. Authenticity, very much needed. It's always been needed in any discipline in human existence, right? But I hope she's just real. I hope she's for real. But yeah, yeah, the Adam Smith guy. he sounds horrendous. And yes, I had that same feeling of like, who the fuck is us? Who is this guy? And I see people, I saw people like complaining about him. I'm like, okay, who the fuck is this guy? And then I watched the Breaking Points interview, and I'm like, oh, okay, got it. And it's actually interesting. She brought up the idea, like, oh, when you hear him talk, he sounds like a regular ass dude, or not a regular ass dude, but like a like a warm person, like, oh, he's charismatic and he can talk clearly. So thus, people will be attracted to that. But deep down, what he actually does when he's in office are harmful to the idea of human beings. Actually, more than human beings, the planet itself, if you will. So, all right, let's keep playing. There we go.
War movement, and we have to turn the tables on this, and that is why I'm running against Adam Smith.
Yeah, that's my impression as well. I actually, my memory of Congressman Smith was I was watching one time. There was a hearing about whether to, and this is during the first Trump administration, to defund Trump's efforts to withdraw from Afghanistan, and Liz Cheney had created an alliance with several of the most pro-war, pro-military, military-industrial complex Democrats, and her main partner was Adam Smith, and they worked together to basically defund any effort to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. And this is basically what he's done for so long. Now, before we get to the command,
What's that? It's being in Afghanistan for that long was not an accident, and leaving's not an accident either. All right, why not pull back? Just think about it, like where we're at right now. Why not pull back troops and pull back resources from Afghanistan? Because our focus is over here in Iran. That's where our new focus is. So you know what? We'll pull back resources from there to use them over in somewhere else. All right, and that's been the thing. Like when Trump pulls troops from Syria in his first term, he's moving them to Iraq. You could say, hey, we're getting troops out of Syria, but they're just relocating to somewhere else in the Middle East. And same with Afghanistan, right? You pull them out of Afghanistan and you relocate them somewhere else in the Middle East because you haven't finished the job yet. And it's okay because, listen, you've already bottomed out Afghanistan for all these years. All right, fine, we can move on from this. But all right, here we go.
And this is basically what he's done for so long. Now, before we get to the command, let's talk a little about this district, because I find this also so interesting in terms of our political dynamic. This is a very blue district. It's a very Democratic district. Obviously, Seattle is a one of our more left-wing cities. It's the reason why you were able to have so much success running as a socialist outside of the Democratic Party, and not just for your own, victories, but also for things like raising the minimum wage, which you have been the spearhead of and the driving force behind. I think the Democratic candidates in the presidential elections win this district by 60, 70 points. What is it about our political system that we have these incredibly liberal left districts, and then we keep sending people for decades to the Congress, like someone like Adam Smith?
Yeah, it really is encapsulated by the overarching contradiction in American politics, where overall Congress is extremely unpopular, and this has been a steady state. It's just the only thing that's changed is it's declining. The Democratic and Republican parties as a whole and Congress members as a whole are extremely unpopular, more so now, especially as consciousness is rising among the American working class. And yet at the same time, the incumbency rate is extremely high. I can't remember what.
I'm sorry, she uses that word a lot. Well, in the Breaking Points interview that she did, she used the word consciousness quite a bit, which rings, to me from I remember the late 2000s basically, and free your consciousness and the Matrix references and all that stuff. I wonder what her thought process is when it comes to that. Is it political? Is it spiritual? What is it? But all right, here we go.
It's declining. The Democratic and Republican parties as a whole and Congress members as a whole.
I think it's worth it. I think it's important, guys.
More so now, especially as consciousness is rising among the American working class. And yet at the same time, the incumbency
brain rotters don't
rate is
notice. I notice.
high. I can't remember what it is, but something like 90-95%. I mean, insane. It's like lifelong job. You can be there for your whole life and you coast through your re-elections. There's never any real challenge. And
Shut the Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
And yet people are angry. So I can only explain that contradiction by
R.I.P. Lindsey Graham.
By noticing that these people like Adam Smith get elected by default, meaning when there's no real challenge to them, People are checked out of politics. I mean, many working people don't even vote because they are fed up with the Democratic and Republican parties, and they're like, whatever, I don't care. Neither of them is actually representing me. They both are billionaire-backed parties, and so I don't care. They're both promoting war and genocide. And so a lot of these politicians, they actually, like Adam Smith, they rely on people, working people, tens of millions of them, being disengaged from politics and disenchanted with Congress. It actually suits them because then they get to coast into re-election after re-election by default. And what's changed now is that this campaign, our campaign, is the strongest ever challenge by far, by any objective measure, that Adam Smith has ever faced in his entire 30-year career. And that is why he's extremely nervous. The establishment is extremely nervous. They don't want us to advance to the November election. That's their main goal, to keep me out of the November election. And our main goal right now is to maximize the vote, get out every vote possible for the August 4th election. But I'll just add one thing. Glenn, you're totally right. Seattle is a left-wing city. And in fact, the population, the working class of Seattle is far to the left of the politics that's on offer from the Democratic establishment, which controls this city. I mean, there's no Republican stronghold in our city. And at the same time, actually, the fact that working people are angry at both parties is not just a feature of blue or left-wing cities like Seattle. It's actually a nationwide phenomenon. If you look at the opinion polls on actual issues, specific issues like ending the forever imperialist wars, ending the genocide now, actually opposition to Israel, which is a new phenomenon and it's extremely important feature of American politics. If you look at support for no cuts on Medicare and Medicare, for support for universal public health care, for full funding for public schools, for our neighborhoods, repairing infrastructure, the whole spectrum of issues, the working class in all of America is well to the left of the politics on offer. But then we are divided. Working people are divided on the basis of, oh, did you vote for the Democrats or did you vote for Republicans? When in reality, both parties are selling out. And in fact, there is a mood of revolt across red states and blue states.
Yeah, you and I had planned our interview before you did your interview with Breaking Point, and I hope people go and watch that interview you did with Ryan Graham, my former colleague at The Intercept, and Crystal Ball, because I think it's very illuminating, and I don't want to repeat any of that. I think, people who are interested in what they asked you about, whether you should be in the Democratic Party, whether you should be running as part of DSA, whether you should be kind of on the outside, should go watch that interview. I don't want to repeat all of that. But I do think there's this interesting dynamic here, which is that within the Democratic Party, and I think in the Republican Party as well, I'll just give you the example that's most prominent from the Republican Party, which is, for a long time, Lindsey Graham, I think we're all supposed to pretend this isn't true now that he died and he's ascended to secular saint status, but he was hated not just by Democrats, but by a lot of Republicans, especially in this Trump era when people were trained to oppose neoconservatism and endless war, and he was seen as part of this crowd of John McCain and Joe Lieberman.
No one's looking at that guy as an angel now. What I've seen on the internet, they're shutting out. There's fucking AI videos of some crazy ass shit. Whatever, whole bunch of shit out there. But I'm not seeing anything really too positive, except from the old fogies, the dinosaurs that are in office, basically. And Cory Booker. All right, here we go.
And yet he just kept winning. He just keeps winning. He kept winning, even though he doesn't really have any popular base, doesn't spend any time in South Carolina. And you see this on the Democratic side a lot as well, where someone like Adam Smith, again, a very political city Seattle is, and yet until now, he hasn't really ever faced a meaningful challenge. And there's mechanisms within the party that I think people don't understand, where if you do challenge a Democratic incumbent, and you're a political consultant and you work for the primary challenger, or you're a pollster, or any kind of campaign operative, or anybody with aspirations within the Democratic Party, you go work for a candidate that's opposed, not just as an incumbent, but that's opposed by the DCCC, they'll ruin you. They'll blacklist you. And so you have this Democratic Party that's designed at its core as an incumbent protection racket, which is why the incumbency rates or the re-election rates are so high, despite how unpopular the Congress is, and even both parties are. Nonetheless, that said, one of the things that I found so interesting about your opponent, Adam Smith's interview with Breaking Points. Crystal Ball, before she interviewed you, interviewed him for about 45 minutes, pretty adversarial. And what struck me was at the beginning, he or she mentioned that the one who reached out to do the interview was Adam Smith. He actually asked to go on Breaking Points. And as I said, this is somebody who prefers to he's like a cockroach. They don't like the light. They prefer to kind of scurry around in the dark back rooms where the lobbyists
Leave
are, where the bills
cockroaches
get
alone.
written. And the fact that he not only reached out to be publicly heard, but did so on kind of a more independent media outlet that's more attached to or identified with the left wing of the Democratic Party, I think says a lot about the pressure finally that these Democratic incumbents are under. What do you think that says? And if you agree that they're feeling pressure, where's that pressure coming from?
Oh,
Young people. That's where it's coming from. Young people. Right. The best thing to do with older people, just once again, not trying to, crap on anyone or dismiss anyone or anything like that, or just overly judge because of your fucking age. But still, on average, if I had to guess, older people are probably watching more so cable network style news, right? CNN, MSNBC, or whatever, MS Now, whatever it's called, or Fox News or whatever. So thus, yes, the whole topic, the Israel topic, has become a thing for, I think, all age groups at this point. Like, it's a major topic in U.S. politics. So if he goes on CNN or MS Now and, spouts the shit he was spouting with Crystal, like, you're risking losing your older voters, right? Your older voter base, right? You risk losing that. But with young people, they already don't like you. So why not try your best to, like, maybe, siphon some, pick off some fucking young people if they believe you in your interview with Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm, right? Go on Breaking Points. Say words that maybe will work on them. Maybe not. I don't know. But you maybe try there just to, like, if you can get a couple hundred supporters, maybe, I'll try it. I'll take the risk, because if no one likes me no one in the audience of Breaking Points likes me, like, well, they didn't like me anyways. So at least let me, like, try to, like, gather some points here or there. I think that was kind of his purpose. But all right, here we go.
And if you agree that they're feeling pressure, where's that pressure coming from?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. There is enormous pressure on the entire political establishment. The two parties that are billionaire parties, they represent the agenda of the billionaires, and consequently, they also represent the agenda of the warmongering profiteers, because it's the same billionaires and multimillionaires who take home the lion's share of the profits by underpaying tens of millions of American workers, who are also profiting from the bombing and the destruction and the genocide in the Middle East. So it's the same pack of super rich people who are benefiting by impoverishing the American working class as well. And that's why you have a situation where in the richest nation in the history of humanity, America, you have half of American households saying that they can't even afford groceries, and let alone the skyrocketing rent, just the absolutely horrendous eviction rates that have spiked up, the healthcare being in shambles. People are not able to afford the basic needs. I mean, I know so many people who are in the teaching profession, like I was before I became a full-time activist, who are not able to afford rent and are living in their cars. I mean, this is an absolutely disastrous situation in the United States, and consciousness has been rising, especially since the Occupy movement. And in fact, my first election victory in the city council, that came out of my role in the Occupy movement, where, remember, the Occupy movement slogan was banks got bailed out and working class people got sold out. And so people are recognizing, millions of people, that actually we are all being sold out by this system and this system's political representatives. And there is huge anger roiling among the American working class. And that anger is what is presenting a challenge to the Democratic establishment. And that is translating into specific difficulties for the Democratic establishment. We've seen the Democratic Socialists of America candidates in the Democratic primaries in New York and Colorado defeat these seemingly invincible Democrats, like Adriano Espaillat and Diana DeGette. These are all genocidal Democrats, people who have shamelessly 100% been the peons for the capitalist class. But now there's a reckoning for them. And so these people have, these guys in New York and Colorado have already been defeated in the primaries. And now Adam Smith is facing a specific challenge. As far as Adam Smith is concerned, obviously for someone like him, he cares about the billionaire agenda because that's his life's work. And so it doesn't make him happy that other incumbents like him have been defeated. But at this moment, it is not a theoretical or abstract challenge that he's facing. He's just facing a specific challenge to his own political career. And that's what's most important here. And I think that is why this August 4th primary is so crucial, because we need to be one of the top 2 vote getters in the August primary in order to be able to advance in the November election. Let me just paint a picture. If we advance to the November election, it will be a head-to-head match between Adam Smith, a billionaire warmongering Democrat. I mean, he's not a billionaire, but billionaire supporting warmongering Democrat, and me, an anti-war socialist with a 10-year track record on the Seattle City Council of having won historic victories like the nation's highest minimum wage, which you mentioned, defeating Jeff Bezos and winning the Amazon tax, and defeating corporate landlords, Trump supporting corporate landlords to win unprecedented renters' rights. So that head-to-head matchup in the November election is going to be the most electrifying race in the midterm election. Of that, I am sure. But to do that, we have to get through the primary election, and it's a jungle primary, meaning regardless of party affiliation, everybody's in the same primary. So I'm going up against Adam Smith. But one thing to mention here, which is what this is the type of maneuvers the Democratic and Republican establishments come up with, is that they have a Republican in this race. They make sure that the other Republicans left the race, and there's only one Republican, and there are parts of the congressional district that lean Republican. And so the idea from the establishment is to make sure that that Republican gets enough votes so that he advances to the November election and keeps me out. And in fact, he was pretty open about it. He openly admitted that he was recruited in order to keep me from the November election, not to defeat Adam Smith, because he's run against Adam Smith many times and he's never defeated him. And that's never the idea. The idea is to keep any possible left-wing challenge out. And then there's a Democratic candidate also who's running a very, it's almost a dormant campaign. She's hardly raised any money. She's hardly talking to anywhere. We don't see the campaign anywhere. But the role that it's going to play effectively is going to be the role that Elizabeth Warren played in the 2020 Democratic primary. Remember when Amy Klobuchar and everybody else, they dropped out?
Pete Buttigieg,
and they made sure.
Pete Buttigieg with Obama's call, they all dropped out, left in the one person who could split the vote with Bernie against Biden, which was Elizabeth Warren. It's a longtime Democratic Party strategy.
Exactly. So they're hoping that between the Republican and the other Democrat, they can perform that maneuver once again here. But that's what we are fighting back against. And that's why it's really important that people hear our message, because it is crucial for us to, if we are able to defeat Adam Smith in November, it will not only be a defeat of Adam Smith, Glenn, but because, precisely like you were saying, because he's one of the figureheads, the central figureheads of the war agenda, defeating him will also be a stinging defeat to the war profiteers themselves.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think. I mean, fuck. I don't know enough about Washington politics, but I'm just using my kind of intuitive sense of things where I don't think she's going to win. But the idea would, I guess, is to be like, hey, get enough votes to where it's like, hey, now my name's out there, and now you have to like at least listen to me, and then maybe that kickstarts something, And that's not me saying like, oh, she's for real, she's legit. I don't know that. And the people that interview her are not going to ask questions to try to figure that out. They're just going to ask political shit, right? But still, if she is legit, I get her strategy. Legit as in like authentic. Or not a full-blown, full of shit artist, right? I understand the strategy, I guess, of trying to like, hey, let's get my name out there, try to get some votes in that district of Washington, and hope that, if I get like fucking, 20%, which is not that's not a winning side of having 20%. I assume, depending on how many candidates are there. But let's say 20%, and Adam Smith gets 40%. Like, he won by a landslide on paper, but at the same time, like, now this person exists now, and thus maybe more interviews, maybe more people are like, hey, who's this lady? Hey, Adam Smith is fucking us over. Who's this? Is there any like different options? Okay, we'll look at this lady potentially. But I get it. Let me just see it. All right, here we go. So far, it's just like, okay, all right, same thing I heard before with breaking points. But all right, here we go.
Ask you, one of the things that you were debating in your Breaking Point interview, principally with Crystal, who tends to, I think, believe.
Okay. I want to hear this. Because, and I start like, it was like not an eye opener, but like, boom, IQ test, you failed it right there. And it was with Crystal Ball hey, Crystal, when does like principles enter the conversation here? When does morality enter the equation or the way you view politics? Because it was kind of like, hey, you're almost you're breaking with like the idea of DSA and these fucking organizations and shit like that, and like, hey, when you have such a dire message, Kshama, how the fuck are we supposed to win anything? Don't we have to like play ball at least a little bit? Like, that's what I basically heard, and I'm like, fuck off, dude, with your political strategies. It gets people fucking nowhere. Here's what happens. They're getting more and more names elected, but when it comes to the things that people are like, this is drastically bad, they remain unchanged. In my opinion, at least. I'm sure they'll bring in more Meals on Wheels, right? But the apparatus itself will still be blowing up people halfway across the world, or below the southern border, right? South America, wherever, right? Ukraine, Russia is still going on. Like, a lot of these so-called progressive candidates are in favor of helping and funding Ukraine fight against Russia. I mean, that should be like, yo, you're done. You're canceled after that shit. But apparently, it's all right as long as they say, free Gaza, free Palestine. As long as you say that, like, yeah, who cares about your fucking stance on Ukraine, Russia? And also, to me, the main point, which is a lot of inauthenticity, like just fake fucks, man. They can say Medicare for all day and night. They can say free Palestine all day and night. But it screams like the way they move smells like inauthentic, and they're just like playing to the crowd, right? Not actual leaders, but just followers of their own followers, basically. But all right, let's keep playing. I want to hear this question because Glenn's gonna bring it up. I'm curious of her answer. I think she answered it not too bad when Crystal was trying to grill her on that. And she's like, yo, this whole idea of like, shut up and help DSA win elections. Well, they're not fucking doing anything, really. They're not doing enough. So what's the win just having new names in office instead of actual change, right? Which is what she was looking for. In her words, at least. But let's hit play. Here we go.
And will also be a stinging defeat to the war profiteers themselves.
I want to ask you, one of the things that you were debating in your Breaking Point interview, principally with Crystal, who tends to, I think, believe what I don't believe, which is that it's important to have a new kind of politics, but it's either morally better or strategically better or both to kind of keep that one foot in connection to the Democratic Party, to run as Democrats, to vote for Democrats. And I think the debate that you had with her on that question was very illuminating. And one of the things that you had said was, look, all I care about is outcomes. And I do, one of my big criticisms of the left, I've had many, is that
I'm sorry.
You had said was, look, all I care about is outcomes. And I do, one of my big criticisms of the left, I've had many, is that
I'm not sure
they
that
don't
was.
always seem very focused
Okay, fair
on
enough.
outcomes. And one of the reasons why I've admired your work is because you have actual results and success to show, not just, speechifying and theorizing and the like. You really seem to care only about one thing, which is improving the material lives of the people who you say you want to represent. I think the left has lacked that. I've been
I thought I was
impressed
hearing a little
by
bit more than that.
DSA and this kind of organizational strength and structure that they've shown, the success, because it's more serious than I think the American left has been in quite a while. But nonetheless, she asked you, would you be willing to work with Democrats, notwithstanding what I think is your very well-deserved disdain and contempt for the Democratic Party? And you said, yeah, I'd absolutely be willing to work with Democrats on when our causes are aligned, and when doing so will advance the policies I believe in. I want to ask you that same question about people on the American right, who obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the radical
Hmm.
changes among conservatives, especially younger ones under 50.
Hold on. Okay, I'll back up a bit, but like, I, hmm, I didn't get that sense of that was her answer. I thought I got the sense like, this shit's failing. That's what it felt like she was saying. Maybe I misheard her. Uh, because the idea of like, you could say, would you work with Democrats? Of course, I'd work with Democrats. In what sense? If it's, let's say she's working alongside Adam Smith, hypothetically, right? Not a realistic thing, but like hypothetically, right? And he co-sponsors a bill about rescuing puppies, right? Something that's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that, right? But he also wants to blow up people in the Middle East somewhere. I don't see how you can still work with that person in that way. Like no. I'm not going to give you a fucking cookie or an applause when you have something so gross over here, right? In fact, politicians use that, right? They'll go on stage and be like, oh, it was the man who co-sponsored the Save the Puppies Act, right? They'll fucking brag about it. Meanwhile, all the other dirty things that are just blatantly there, they'll keep getting away with. And in fact, they'll use maybe her name or someone else's name. Like, hey, Kshama fucking supported hey, you're on my team. You supported one of my bills, see? Look at that. I got the great Kshama Sawant to sign the bill that I put out. Where it's like, hey, this whole material thing, you got to think a little bit bigger than that. But once again, I didn't get that sense from her. I didn't get that sense from her. I heard that with DSA, maybe, right? Like, hey, we align on certain things, but your guys' strategy is dog shit. Was what I was smelling, because you're not actually getting rid of corruption. But let's see what she says in response to this. Here we go.
Will advance the policies I believe in. I want to ask you that same question about people on the American right, who obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the radical changes among conservatives, especially younger ones under 50 when it comes to Israel, but not just Israel. Trump got a lot of those young people on the side of the American right by promising no more wars. We know they didn't follow through on that, but that was one of the main promises, but also taking on corporate power,
New wars.
returning financial security and financial prosperity to the working class. Again, these aren't things Trump ended up doing, but they were obviously things that resonated with a lot of people who identify as conservatives. I'm wondering what you make of this kind of transformation, clearly on the question of Israel and U.S. financing of it, but also a lot of opposition on the American right to the war in Iran, much more so than there was, say, to the war in Iraq, a broader critique of the U.S. imperialism and militarism in the world, but also a growing kind of anger toward this servitude of our political class to large corporate power. And I will just underscore that by saying I think this has been in the making for a long time. You mentioned the anger that gave rise to Occupy Wall Street, which was from the bailout by George Bush and then Barack Obama of the banks in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. There was that kind of sister movement, you could call it, which was the Tea Party that, although it got commandeered into sort of marching for lower taxes and protesting attempts to block bonuses for bank executives, like insane Republican stuff. Originally, a lot of that anger of the Tea Party was motivated by very similar anger about things like the bank bailout. And so you've had this kind of convergence, I think, for a long time. And I think Israel has really brought it to the fore. I'm wondering what you make of of that, if you consider that positive, if that's something you'd also be as willing to work with as you would with Democrats.
Oh yeah, my response to that question about whom would you work with was very much on the lines of absolutely anybody who wants to fight for the working class, fight against the war agenda. We are going to fight together, and that's my record in the city council as well. I mean, all the council members were Democrat except for me. I was an independent socialist, and to the extent that the Democratic Party, I'm starting with the Democratic Party, but it applies to the Republican Party as well.
Actually, thank you for going back to the original statement, because I thought there was something that wasn't correct in there. Maybe I'm actually correct, and Glenn kind of framed it incorrectly. And then also the second part, I'm actually curious. So that's two decent kind of questions and statements, and I'm glad she's like not skipping over that first part. I want to hear that answer. So here we go.
And I want to mainly make a class distinction here, meaning the working class as a whole, regardless of what their ideological affiliations might be in any given election, versus the ruling class, the billionaires and multimillionaires, and their political representatives, who themselves may not be billionaires, but who represent the billionaire agenda. So that's the starting point that I'm proceeding from. And so on the Seattle City Council, it was always the case that I was extremely cordial to all the Democrats and politicians, and to the extent that they were willing, any of them were willing to work alongside me, fight alongside me for the working class. And it has to always be a fight, because that's the only way you win anything for working people under capitalism. To the extent that they were willing to do that, I always welcomed it. The honest truth, though, Glenn, is that those instances were not the norm. It was the exception in which they were willing to fight alongside us. The norm was that the Democratic Party politicians actually opposed, sometimes viciously and many times through backroom machinations, they opposed the working class agenda that I was fighting for. And so therein lies the complication. So this whole question of, are you willing to work for, is always posed in terms of individual career politicians and their personal relationships with other politicians. That is the framework through which it is presented. And that is actually a framework that is deeply toxic and hostile to the interests of the working class. Because if you are a careerist, of course, it helps you to keep cordial relations with other politicians because they have the power, the lobbyists have the power. So it helps your career advance if you're willing to make peace with them. But who gets screwed over in that process? It's the working class.
Well,
And
I'll be honest. Once again, she has a lot of political terms. I wish I could question her in a way to get more towards, what are you really saying? Versus, once again, people could say, like, oh my God, we need to end capitalism. Or this guy's a capitalist. We need to get them out of here. But okay, by that, do you mean an economic system, or do you mean this guy's bad, and the root cause of it is capitalism, right? Which is a way different statement than, I disagree with his economics, right? Economics versus this person's there's corruption here. That's why they're fucked. That's why we gotta get them out of office. There's a major difference, but she uses that political lingo. It is what it is. And no offense to the questioners that I've heard so far of this lady, from Glenn to Ryan Grimm to Crystal Ball, they're not, they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to do that. Unfortunately, they'll keep it in politics instead of hey, you're a human being. What do you mean by all this? On a deeper level, what do you mean? They don't know what questions to ask to get there, because they're not doing it with themselves. How the fuck are they going to ask someone else, right? But either way, if I wanted to look on the bright side of what she's saying, I could go oh well, she means what she says, a toxic relationship with these capitalists or these establishment politicians. You can go with the idea of potentially of she's saying yeah, if you do corrupt shit, you're not going to use me as a PR tool or as a distraction, right? Because you gave me some crumbs, right? You gave me some crumbs of policy or supported one thing I did, so now I'm your best friend and now we're going to work together, right? She's no, your actual thing, your actual drive and purpose must be towards this idea. If it's not that, get the fuck out. That's the nice side of things. The negative side, I mean, that it just come down to like, okay, you're just lying about what you mean by that. Like you're just lying in regards to what she's saying right now. Is that'd be the negative, right? But I am definitely not there yet. In fact, I'm intuitively not on the side of. I think this lady's full of shit. Like I think she's legit, like legit in the sense of meaning what she's saying, right? In that sense, her actual, you know, uh, her actual strategy for making the world a better place. That's where we'll have questions there. For me personally, once again, right? I need to see like to sneak past the veil of fucking politics to see like what do you actually mean? What is your drive? Is violence an answer? Is what level is it by any means necessary? Where it's like you might do something stupid to get some sort of political thing done, regardless of if you're authentic or not, right? That's what I'd be looking for and asking about. But once again, on the surface, what I think she would say, she's actually saying it at this point, in words at least. But let's hit play. I'm gonna, I guess, interject. Pause. Here we go.
Who gets screwed over in that process? It's the working class.
Well,
And
if
so
I can just interrupt there for 1 second and interject there. I guess that just to clarify what I mean, like that's
Pause.
exactly what I guess I am asking is just like, people like you, people like myself have long complained that there's this gigantic and very glaring mismatch between the values and goals and policies of Democratic Party politicians and elected officials and leadership on the one hand, and the kind of base of the Democratic Party voter on the other. There's a very similar frustration among at least certain factions on the American right and their leaders in the Republican Party. It's one of the reasons why why Donald Trump was able to gun down all those establishment candidates, starting with Jeb Bush and then Marco Rubio, and then Ted Cruz, basically break every rule of American presidential politics because all the establishment money and power was behind these other candidates, not behind him. And he basically won by saying these Republicans have been embracing orthodoxies and ideologies that are not in your interest, that do not serve your interests. And that resonated with a lot of people on the right as well. So I'm not really asking you, would you get to Congress and work with, they're not in Congress anymore, but Thomas Massey or Marjorie Taylor Greene, so much as I'm asking you, there's clearly a shift, just like there is among Democratic Party voters and the hatred they harbor for not just the establishment, but specific defining policies like support for Israel. There's a very similar shift, maybe not as much, but certainly non-trivial, on the American right when it comes to foreign policy, linking us to Israel, even servitude to the corporate class, the deindustrialization, lots of opposition to NAFTA, things that had long driven left-wing populist politics as well. And I'm just wondering what you make of that. And is that something that someone like you, who doesn't want to work within the Democratic Party structure, who talks a lot about the working class and the need for the working class to unite, do you see potential there in terms of these trends on the American right as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is why I was saying that the class lens is the central focus, because otherwise we miss a lot of these important aspects of what's happening in American politics and the American working class. And it is precisely because of what you said, Glenn, which is the potential to unite working class people. Again, it has to be a clear a working class agenda. The potential to unite the working class in West Virginia or Texas or Florida with the working class in a left-leaning state like Washington or Oregon, that potential is what scares the billionaire class and the establishments of the two parties. That is what scares them about my candidacy as well, precisely because it has the potential to do that. I mean, just to give you an example, the demands I'm running on are ending all military aid to Israel, doing a permanent arms embargo on the Israeli state, fighting for free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich, for national rent control, for a national $25 an hour minimum wage, which I think should be at least 30 in big cities. These demands, and also a public sector living wage jobs guarantee so that people actually are able to fight against the data centers, against the mass layoffs. We're fighting to stop the data centers. These demands are extremely popular across the spectrum, even if there may be disagreement on some this or that issues. And I want to be very clear to all the working people who are watching this, that if you want to fight on the issue of free healthcare for all funded by taxing the billionaires, if you want to end the $1 trillion that are spent for bombarding Palestinian, Lebanese, and Iranian people. And if you want those $1 trillion to be used for housing, healthcare, public schools, all of these things that we need here, then this campaign is your campaign. And it is precisely because I refuse to be in the stranglehold of the Democratic and Republican agenda, which is both a billionaire agenda. That is precisely what is scary to the billionaire class about a campaign like this, that actually there will be unity. There's potential for unity among people in, across the country. I mean, just to give a
Now, I hear what she's saying. Not sure I agree. And it's not so much about, like, I heard, no offense to Dopster, I heard this full, basically crying, we can't have communism. And there's people that will view it that way. They'll view what you're saying there that way, lady. And that's why it'll be, like, it is what it is. It'll be rough. If you say the word minimum wage, you'll say, well, this is not economically feasible. Like, doesn't make sense. It's socialism and communism will never work, right? Will probably be like a slogan they use. They don't even think about it. Like, a lot of people will not even think. They'll just say it because they're, trained that way, if you will. Or if you say Medicare for all, that's going to scare the shit out of them. Most likely. So that one, yes, there's people that are like, you know what, fuck it, let's give it a try because everything else has failed. There's people like that, but not enough yet to where there's like, fuck it, go ahead, lady. You want tax the billionaires? Fine, go ahead. But right now, you'd have, I think, a very strong resistance to that. I guess the picture I showed earlier, well, I think it might be AI, honestly. It's more of like showcasing, like, oh my god, these are my heroes. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent. Those guys won't go that direction. In fact, they'll warn of your existence as a problem. They'll like, this lady's a problem. They might do that. If you kept it strictly about Israel and Israel only, which I think is a dishonest way to do things, but if you did that, then you'd get more of their attention and their audience's attention. But I think they would gatekeep you away from their own audiences. Either ignore you because you're not famous enough, or if you do become famous enough, crap on you to keep you away from, their fucking followers from ever going to your direction. Not saying your direction's correct, but the idea of you being welcoming, like, hey, these guys want this too. Like, I'm not so sure about that. Not so sure about that, except on the foreign policy front. But domestically, on economics and shit like that, they'll turn it into like, well, you support open borders. I never said that. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. Well, I want you to, so I could say you support open borders. like there's, again, not trying to dick ride here, but I'm getting a vibe of something where it's like, she sounds like for real, like not for real as in like being correct, for real as in like being real, like being a regular person, like saying things out loud. And these guys most likely will turn it into you're some sort of monster that they're trying to fight. All right. It's pretty, like, listen, let's be honest. What's the thing that Netanyahu was saying or Lindsey Graham was saying too? And some of these people, hey guys, we don't want your funding anymore. Like, hey, we don't want you to give us $3.8 billion a year anymore. We don't want you to, right? We want to become more independent as like an idea, right? Israel, that is. And if that issue kind of like fades away a bit, right? If we stop giving them money or phase out over several years, and the U.S. is no longer funding Israel, and the topic fades with it, right? If the topic as a pop culture thing right now, the political pop culture thing right now, Israel, right? If that goes away, what would they be working with you on? I think they'd be fighting against you. Which is why you're supposed to be calling out character right now. And I would love, like, actually, funny enough, I'd love to hear her thoughts of, let's say, a Tucker Carlson or a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Joe Kent. I wish Glenn would actually ask that question. Because for all we know, she's like, yo, these guys are full of shit. They're using these topics as a way to kind of infiltrate what people are concerned about right now. Like, she might say that. And thus, that means they're not being for real. Which means you got, like, hey, I'm the real deal, they're fakers. But they're also the Pied Pipers, right? It's undeniable. When it comes to Tucker or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Joe Kent or Thomas Massey even, who will definitely be like fully against your economic ideas, fully against it. You say minimum wage a certain way, like he's going to say no. If you say Medicare for all, he's going to say no. It is what it is. He's probably going to either call you dumb or full of shit. But all right, well, let's keep playing. Here we go.
For unity among people in across the country. I mean, just to give a concrete example, as you remember, in the Democratic primary in West Virginia in 2016,
Anderson Tucker and shit.
Bernie Sanders won all
Fuentes.
55 counties in that state against Hillary Clinton. But then, of course, the Democratic establishment carried out all kinds of machinations and the chicanery, and Bernie Sanders was out. Hillary Clinton was anointed as a candidate. She was hated, correctly so, hated by the working class of the United States because she was the epitome of the Goldman Sachs Wall Street agenda. And then what happened in the general election, November election? Trump took all 55 counties of West Virginia. To me, there is no better illustration of the potential that exists to unite working people. And that's why I've always said that I don't care whom you voted for in the 2024 election or you didn't vote at all. I don't care if you vote Republican in other races. If you want to fight for healthcare, if you're angry against the billionaire class and you want to fight alongside me, then this campaign is your campaign. I have pledged that if elected, I will turn my congressional inauguration into a mass rally of 10,000 people in Washington, D.C., and immediately start using my office to build movements to end military aid to Israel and to fight for free healthcare and other demands. And none of this is going to be possible unless we can use our congressional office to unite working people across the United States.
So I just want to dig a little bit deeper into that. This is one of the things I find so interesting about your trajectory, about your worldview, and how distinct it is. I think even not just from the Democratic Party establishment, but even from people like we were talking before, but kind of people who attach to the Bernie AOC style of doing politics, always keeping connection to the Democratic Party and its orthodoxies. One of the oddities about American politics is that, in the last half of the 20th century, really going back to FDR, the Democrats were the party of the working class, the party of unions, and the Republicans were the party of bankers and the well-off and the affluent, and their policies represented that. And for reasons we now well know, starting with Bill Clinton and kind of this modern-day Democratic Party, they purposely got away from that. And you now had this mass migration of working-class people to the Republican Party, especially under Trump, but it was even starting beforehand. And you have, a lot of working-class people who are voting for policies that traditionally the working class and their institutions, particularly labor unions, most vehemently oppose. Some people say the reason for that is because Democrats starting being represented by, as you called it, the Goldman Sachs or Wall Street or McKinsey kind of ethos, like the Hillary Clintons and the Pete Buttigieg's, even in Barack Obama, Tim Geithner, all those people he brought in. It was just very alienating. Other people think it's because of cultural issues, that this kind of obsession on very divisive, not to say unimportant, but still very polarizing and divisive cultural issues prevents people who should be uniting on more significant questions of power of foreign policy and economic policy. And actually, we're seeing it throughout the democratic world. I mean, in Brazil, for example, Bolsonaro won because he got a huge portion of the votes of working class people, of poor people, even though Lula and the Workers' Party had laid a claim to that for so long. You see that all throughout Europe as well. When we talk about, you talk a lot about the working class. I think it's kind of the North Star of your politics. I think that's pretty clear. Why is it that at least the traditional kinds of voters that we thought about at the working class, maybe the working class has expanded, but the traditional kinds of voters that used to be the province of the Democratic Party now find themselves not just alienated by the Democratic Party, but actively attracted to the Republican Party? What do you think explains all that?
I think it is explained by the fact that in reality, neither party represents working class. And what happens every so often in sort of, you go through eras where the pendulum swings back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans, the party. I mean, And so
I mean, that'd be my answer, but I'd add a little bit more of a sinister nature to it. Of like, I think that's on purpose, where people end up like I think the politicians move in a weird way, and the voters end up like because hey, right now who's winning right now? Who's shining? A lot of different Democratic style people, right? Democratic style politicians, or left leaning, if you will, because whoever's in office looks like fucking dog shit. Let's be honest. Obama, although PR wise didn't come out like the worst guy ever, right? His actual policies were like, yo, is this shit working at all? And if someone shows up to like, yo, I'm gonna fucking change the whole thing, or I'm change the fucking game over, right? Which was Trump. They swing that direction because like, hey, we'll take like, listen, this lame shit over here. Hey, listen, whatever. Maybe you like Obama's talking style and how clear his words sound, but ultimately, like, my life didn't improve from this guy being in office. Not really. You know what? Let's take a chance on over like going in a different distance of fixing things, right? And they swing to Trump. Trump gets in there. He's dog shit. Although PR wise, once again, less noticed by his own followers, right? His own voters, less noticed. But ultimately, a lot of people's lives are like, damn, nothing really changed, really. It felt like a good celebration. It felt good to fucking get that, election victory. But in actuality, 4 years and nothing's really changed. In fact, things might have gotten worse for plenty of people. And maybe they swing the other direction. I know there's ideas of rigging and all that stuff. But let's say if it was legit, I mean, people would just swing the other direction. They swing towards Joe Biden. Let's go that direction. Joe Biden, terrible. Another terrible president. And then they're like, yeah, this guy sucks. Let's swing back the other direction. And now Trump's here. His second term. Like, man, this guy fucking sucks. Fuck it, we'll try the other side again. Like, it is that pendulum swing, just back and forth swinging, and that is the fault of people, voters in America, or people politically active in America. It's their fault. I mean, kindergarten, simple psychology, and they're fucking falling for it year after year. They participate in something like voting, maybe even like phone banking or doing volunteer work. Maybe even to that degree, or putting up signs in their front yards, right, of who to vote for. But they're not doing the actual work to be like, man, what is how do we actually fix things? We've been promised year in, year out that this new replacement will fix things for us. Never happens. So, I'm just saying. That's the exact answer. What she just said right there. I'll replay it from where Glenn left off, and I'll play it again. But that is basically what that's what I would say, except a little bit more sinister to it, right? Of like this is a on a psychological level a fucking problem. It is a problem. Here we go.
I think it is explained by the fact that in reality, neither party represents working class. And what happens every so often in sort of, you go through eras where the pendulum swings back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans, the party, I mean. And so really the story is of people, working class people in America.
Even that right there. Like, I appreciate that. Like, Democrats and Republicans, well, I mean the party. Not the fight, like, not people that call themselves Democrats and Republicans, right? That think they're being helped, but in reality, they're getting fucked by their namesake team, right? These politicians, these party people that are supposed to be called Democrats or Republicans, like, don't actually represent you. They don't, which is why they're not the real thing. But that's why I have to make a distinction that there are some party over here versus regular people. But once again, interesting. Here we go. Sorry for cutting her off. Here we go.
Every so often in sort of, you go through eras where the pendulum swings back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans, the party, I mean. And so really the story is of people, working class people in America, being forced to have only these two parties, and both these parties representing the billionaires for the most part. But changing their tone, changing the words that they use, the rhetoric that they use, and trying to present themselves as, at that moment, the representatives of the working class anger, to basically to co-opt the anger of working people, but make sure that all that anger is contained within these two parties, lest any working people actually, whether you're in West Virginia or Washington, lest you have the temerity to think that actually the problem is both these parties and we need a new party for the working class. And that is why when you look at opinion polls, the idea of a new party for working people is actually extremely popular, and that is what's threatening to the Democratic and Republican parties. And the story of the Democratic Party, I mean, I agree with you that the era of the New Democrats, which really started with Bill Clinton, where they became the standard bearers, the primary standard bearers of the neoliberal agenda. Of course, both the Republican and the Democratic parties were the people who carried out that neoliberal agenda, attacks on the welfare system, the social assistance programs that happened under Clinton. Both the parties supported it. My opponent, Adam Smith, was one of those people. One of his first votes in his first year in office was to slash hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicare and Medicaid. That was Clinton's Balanced Budget Act. And so that's true. But it's also true that the Democratic and Republican parties, they have been parties of the billionaire class for a long time. I mean, let's not forget that the Democratic Party was the party of slavery. Then it became the party of Jim Crow. And so you see the Democratic Party and also the Republican Party, the establishments, they morph themselves into what is needed at that moment, but all in order to achieve the goal that working people in America remain, decade after decade, remain straitjacketed between these two parties. And so what is threatening?
I mean, I'd love to talk to this lady. I'm very curious if it's... I want to dig into bigger questions because, once again, the answers sound like politics. But the actual assessment, the diagnosis of what's happening here, it sounds like something I would say, for sure. I'm curious if she's for real or not. Very curious. And if you're caught in political brain rot, you're not going to see that. You're going to see, the left, and you're going to see that shit. I'm looking for, hey, is she for real? Is she, an actual person saying words out loud? For real saying words out loud, not just campaign. Because the rhetoric I'm hearing, once again, it could be bullshit and a trick, but at least it's more so towards second grade than fucking kindergarten, at least, right? We're used to kindergarten. This is if she's full of shit and she's just tricking everyone and tricking me right now, then she's at least second grade. I'll give her that. It's a trick, right? So, because the little in between statements and it sounds like there's clarity of what she's diagnosing as a problem. Her answers might be something where I'm I don't know about that. But her diagnosis of the problem sounds, to me, in words at least, relatively on point. And I say relatively because I don't know exactly what she means by all these things. She may be oh no, it's the system thing. It's this thing. It's something that's further away from the diagnosis I have. But even if she is caught up in something that's more politically based diagnoses, you're still going to capture some of the tenets of what's actually happening, the actual wrong that's happening. If you're authentic, then yes, you will capture that no matter what field you're stuck at. If you're stuck in politics and nothing about existentialism or psychology, you're stuck in politics and you're trying to diagnose the problem in a real way, you'll see a likeness to people that are using it, that are diagnosing strictly on a psychological basis, right? And all in between, right? They'll have a relation to each other. It'll be cousins of ideas versus, something so far away and kind of empty sounding rhetoric. So once again, this is very interesting. Her answers, and very detailed, like it was thought out, right? That's what it sounds like to me. But all right, here we go. Not an endorsement, by the way.
Working people in
Not an
America
endorsement.
remain, decade after decade, remain straitjacketed between these two parties. And so what is threatening to the billionaires and their two parties is a campaign like ours, where we are rejecting all of that. And in fact, it's a message that is strongly appealing to a lot of people, even if they consider themselves right-wing or Republican voters, but because they are people, working class people, who are angry at the dismal living standards that they face. And it's not just living standards, it's also other types of attacks. Just to mention, part of our district, part of Seattle is in the district, not all of Seattle. And then there are other smaller cities in the district as well. One of them is Renton, which you won't hear on the national news, but Renton is a very important city because there you're seeing ICE terror playing out on the streets, in the neighborhoods. And so the people, regardless of whether they vote Republican or Democrat, they are uniting to protect their immigrant neighbors. And there's, I've heard stories from the residents in Renton where they are actually, they formed this sort of mobile housing kind of thing where they protect their immigrant neighbors by moving them from place to place so that ICE doesn't sink their teeth into them. And there's a city like Federal Way where maybe a lot of people have voted Republican for many years, but who, when they heard about our renters' rights program, were super excited. They could not believe the victories we had won in Seattle for renters. These are working class people. All of this shows the incredible potential for uniting working people on a class basis, and that is exactly what's needed urgently.
Once again, they're not going to listen, people that are stuck in politics, which I think she is as well, for the most part, but that authenticity idea, that's why I'm like, okay, she sounds interesting to me. But these guys on the other side of the political spectrum that are also, they believe what they're saying type people, right? On the so-called right-leaning side of things, they're not going to like the idea of, because when they hear the idea of getting rid of ICE, they hear in their minds, they're saying, oh my God, you mean like you want illegal immigration, you want open borders. That's where their minds typically go, that I've seen at least, or potentially, right? So thus, to me, I'll say, if I was running for office, I'd be less so about, we need a $15 minimum or $25 minimum wage, or we need Medicare for all, or we need to, abolish ICE, or, right? Whether you're saying that authentically or not, right? Some people use it as PR, obviously, but I think she has a whiff of authenticity to me. It is what it is. But I wouldn't be about any of that shit. Or I wouldn't be for, free markets and, no new wars, or whatever fucking slogans they have for either side. My thing, which I think is the thing that's actually needed based on my diagnosis, is that these guys are calling Republican or Democrat when it comes to parties or establishment, right? That she called out there. They're not actually Republican or Democrats. They're working on behalf of corruption, which means you don't fall on a political party. If you're on a political party, if you're actually in a political party, that means you actually believe in the ideas you're saying, right? Like, I am a Democrat because here's my ideas that I believe in. That's why I'm left-leaning or a Democrat. Or I'm a Republican because these are my ideas that I authentically believe in. Or I'm right-leaning, right? Republican or right-leaning or whatever. I truly believe in it, and that's why I'm this or that. Are those motherfuckers in office actually those things? Are they actually that? You have to root these you're faking it for the sake of, being in office, or for business reasons, or propaganda reasons, or lobbyists pay you money to be a certain way. Whatever the fuck you're involved in, has something to do with you actually believing in these principles of a certain political leaning, right? Of a right or a left thing or a centrist thing. That's step one. If you don't do that, it's fucked off rip. It is doomed from the beginning. If you don't get rid of the inauthentic motherfuckers saying that they're a Republican or right-leaning, or the motherfuckers just saying they're left-leaning or Democrat, they have to go first. Get them out of office. Get them away from politics in general. Like, you're done. You're fired. See you later. Right? I don't mean violence, obviously. And I hope she doesn't mean violence at all either. But, like, in the scenario I just gave right there, my diagnosis where the real problem is, and one of the tenets of the real problem is like, yo, fakers. Get fakers away from the fucking nuclear codes. Get fakers away from the foreign policy directives. Get fakers away from your fucking healthcare or your economics. Once we do that, now you can have like, hey, we should have more of a free market version of healthcare. No, we should have more of a, Medicare for all thing. But right now, I don't believe these fools on TV. I don't believe them. When Trump calls Biden a communist or a socialist or some shit like that, I don't fucking believe him. I think he's full of shit. He's just saying it because he's trying to attract the audience, the audience, right? When a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris maybe calls Trump like a fucking Nazi or a racist or a white supremacist, right? I don't believe them. They're not saying it because they really believe that. It's wrestling. It's a game. You're trying to rile up your fucking team to go against the other team. But in reality, those two fools are on the same team. Their behavior showcase are on the same fucking team. But the audience, the voters, the constituents, those guys fight each other when they really do mean it. But they're being fucking tricked by those two idiots. Or sorry, not just those two, but people like them. The movers and shakers, the liars, the bullshitters, the devil worshippers. That's you gotta start with that. Then after that, it's fucking free. It's free. Right? Kshama Sawant, let's say she's legit. And Thomas Massey, let's say he's legit. And they actually hold an actual debate. It's free now. Boom, ideas being spread. What works best? What's most efficient for the sake of bettering the lives of everyone? Right? Now it makes more sense to me. And they won't be worried about being assassinated from the other team or or from some sort of governmental apparatus trying to take you out. It's actually about ideas versus pageantry. But you can't get there until you get rid of these little rats running around here. No offense to rats. You gotta clear that out first. But all right, let's apply. I'll reset it real fast, actually. Forgive me. I'm as long-winded as Kshama is. Pause. Very, very long-winded. And is that K silent? Is it just Shama? Or is it Kshama? Kshama. Here we go.
All right, last question for you. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much charismatic
I'm
you
digging
are,
this interview out.
no matter how hated their incumbent are, I think the most difficult thing in American politics is removing an incumbent, especially within the party, for all the structural reasons we discussed earlier, all the enforcement mechanisms and the like. You are taking on not just an incumbent, but one of the most powerful ones in the Democratic Party caucus. And I guess there is a critique, and this was part of the Breaking Points interview, and one I heard as well when people were trying to pressure some of these kind of left-wing DNC adjacent programs and YouTube shows and streamers and the like to interview you, which is that, look, no one journalist, no one show can interview every candidate. I know this from my own experience. You kind of do have to pick and choose because you don't want to waste your audience's time with people who have no chance to win, even if you like them, because there's not enough organization there. There's just no chance of winning.
I understand that idea, but once again, these guys don't move like they're just, stone cold journalists, Glenn, right? You don't do that. Breaking Points doesn't do that, right? They move like they have a political affiliation and they want certain ideas to win the day. So why not pick anyone you can fucking find that fills that void, that sticks with that idea of what you believe in. And you should obviously venture out and try opposing ideas and question them and let them question you back and all that stuff, for sure. Although, once again, I think Crystal did interview Kshama at some point. Kshama. At some point in the past. But still, it's someone's as soon as it hits your fucking radar, now it's okay, let's hear them out. Whether it's before, after, 10 years, or whatever, you're on my mind now, and now I'm gonna look into you, and I will use, my intuition and all that, my thinking, my processing. Like, okay, you should be talking right now versus someone else. Nah, it looked like you jumped at an opportunity to maybe get your own PR in a way. Not saying that's fully true when it comes to Crystal Ball, or whoever, right? But maybe the point was potentially to do PR for yourself. Like, look, me destroy Adam Smith, this guy who's in love with Israel. Look, I took him down, right? Maybe you'd rather have that moment than you would with, hey, here's someone who's just straight up better. And it actually likens to an idea that I've thought of before years ago. I thought of this idea. It still holds up. I don't use it as a phrase anymore. Maybe I should be. That there's a difference between being anti-war, right? And fuck, what's the fucking words I would use? Difference between being a difference between being pro-peace and anti-war. I think there's actually a difference there. Both important in my worldview, or as far as the topic or the idea, it's very important, right? It's important to take down Adam Smith, right? To be anti-war, metaphorically speaking, to take down Adam Smith, right? This warmongering type person. But it's equally important to be pro-peace, as in if you view Kshama as the actual better option here in comparison to Adam Smith, you should build that up as well. And it looked like the breaking points, folks, were instead of they only went for the teardown of Adam Smith. Instead of hey, here's who's running against him. Let's give them some shine too. More of what I believe in type. Maybe they don't believe in what she believes in. Maybe that's the case. But it seemed like it was more about winning, I guess. But that's, to me, I'm like, okay, maybe she can't win. I don't think she'll win, personally. Just personal intuition. I don't think she'll win. But at the same time, it's as much as you want to tear down Adam Smith, here comes someone that represents the ideas you like. I think you should follow both. Because you guys are not just fucking journalists. You have political leanings. You behave on that. Let's not lie to ourselves. So why not just go, be yourselves, do your thing. Showcase that to the audience for the sake of helping them out. Help them decide if they want to enjoy your content or not by being real with them. Right? But either way, let's keep it moving. Here we go.
And I guess the critique was, look, one thing that is winning right now in American politics for the first time to remove incumbents is the DSA membership. And not even just membership in the DSA, but this whole organizational structure that I admit, I'm surprised the left has managed to assemble. I think they've done a good job of exploiting the current moment. You opted not to go that route. You are running completely outside of the Democratic Party establishment. You're not a member of the DSA.
I think that show was kind of inevitable, like a DSA type thing, or Justice Democrats type thing, or the progressive movement type thing. I think it's kind of inevitable. And let's be real, if these weirdo, clever politicians, say the Democratic Party or whoever, just establishment in general, the apparatus itself, you'd kind of want to get in front of that, right? Pause. You'd kind of want to, hey, this is kind of going to happen. People are going to, listen, we're fucking them over. They're going to find out one day. They're going to get pissed. So why not get ahead of it by setting up certain, organizations or committees or whatever the fuck to make it look like, yeah, now it feels like we're winning now. Hey, look, we got this whole new organic independent thing called the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. We got this organic thing here, and we can win now. Meanwhile, it could have been boosted, helped, supported by full of shit motherfuckers from the beginning. Not saying they are that. I'm not saying they are that. Or that the people within that are like that. I'm just saying you got to think about it, right? You got to consider it. Once again, let me reiterate that, or let me emphasize that. I'm not saying that is the case, but you have to be considering the possibilities of something fucked up going on. Or something wrong happening. You have to. Otherwise, you're doomed to be tricked again. And the point is to not be tricked again. All right? Here we go. Just send.
To assemble. I think they've done a good job of exploiting the current moment. You opted not to go that route. You are running completely outside of the Democratic Party establishment. You're not a member of the DSA. What have the challenges been in terms of getting a campaign organization, getting financing? Is there polling? Well, what is the state of your campaign for people who are thinking about, who have finite money, who want to figure out the best way to where they can put their money and their time and their effort in terms of the various candidates?
Yeah, I think one of the things that gives people a lot of confidence is the fact that as an independent socialist, I have won 4 elections on the Seattle City Council. Each of those elections was considered impossible, especially the first one, but even the next ones. And in fact, it is because
Well,
I
can I just
used
interrupt? Because I remember, and I remember talking to you about this at the time it was happening. There was not only did you have a lot of opposition in winning, but once you won, Amazon was determined, because Amazon's obviously very powerful in Washington State, was determined to remove you and finance this massive recall campaign against you that you ended up defeating as well.
Yes, that's very true. And in fact, one of the 4 elections was defeating that recall. There was an attempted recall against me in 2021. In fact, it was by billionaires like in Amazon, and also Trump supporting billionaire landlords, corporate landlords. And Glenn, the corporate landlords were especially infuriated.
Did she just call him Glenda? Sebs, what have you done? I think she said Glenn right? But it sounded like Glenda is what Sebs calls Glenn Greenwald. As like to shit on him, not because she's homophobic, but because she wants to, make fun of him. Because listen, Glenn does some fuckface shit, man. He does. His intentions behind it, jury's out for me, but he has done some fuckface shit. It is what it is. Anyways, here we go.
Like in Amazon, and also Trump supporting billionaire landlords, corporate landlords. And Glenn, the corporate landlords were especially infuriated at my 10 years in office, because as their main lobbyist himself admitted publicly, while I was in office, the corporate landlords simply could not win. And that was because, as he put it, this is a quote from him, he said, it's because of Sawant's army. And that is the key here. I mean, he is, sometimes your political enemies give you the best compliments, and he's dead right. It is because I used my office to build mass movements of working people and renters that we were able to win. And that is why I think in terms of people who think, well, you have to be part of DSA to win. It's a question of, first of all, it's a question of approach. What kind of campaigns do you run, and what do you do with those offices? Like, I completely disagree with AOC and Mamdani having endorsed Hakeem Jeffries, who is a genocidal Democrat. And so it's really what you do with it. It's not that it's some sort of blanket disagreement. As I said, I really strongly agree with the demands that Mamdani ran on, and I have publicly pledged that if there's a movement to win a $30 minimum wage in New York City, which was one of the demands in the campaign, that I will personally be there to support it. But I actually don't believe from these different left, they're not actually left, but progressive podcast hosts who claimed that they didn't want to feature our campaign because they didn't have polling, they didn't know if you were going to win. I mean, who can give you a guarantee that you're going to win? Nobody can give you a guarantee. AOC did not know she was going to defeat Joe Crowley. The point is, though, do you agree with the politics of this campaign? And I think that's where the real disagreement is, that a lot of these that they call themselves progressive influencers, they don't actually agree that the Democratic establishment should be openly challenged. And whether or not you agree that we need a new party for the working class, in my view, that's the logical conclusion. But even setting that aside, what do you do inside the Democratic Party? If you actually want to fight for the working class, you will, even if you're in the Democratic Party, you will need to go to war back against the billionaire representing Democrats in that party, because without that, you will not be able to win anything. That's the ultimate reality. That's a fundamental reality. And that is what many of these self-described progressives are uncomfortable with. But that is what we have done in Seattle. We have shown that not only can you win elections, nobody can guarantee, of course, but not only can you win elections as an independent socialist, but in fact, the reason we were able to push back against Amazon in their attacks in our re-election efforts was because we had a track record to show for it, because we went to class war back on the ruling class and their Democratic Party representatives. We won the minimum wage. That's what it took. It took us fighting against the Democratic Party to win what is now the nation's highest minimum wage at $21.30 an hour. It took fighting back against them and Jeff Bezos to win the Amazon tax, which is raising hundreds of millions of dollars every year for affordable housing in Seattle. And it took going to war against the corporate landlords and their Democratic representatives on city council to win the renters' rights. But it's because we won those rights that we were able to defeat those same forces who then came after me in every re-election. In fact, AOC, when she first ran for office, she had this.
Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to point out real fast before I forget. I want her, instead of saying like, hey, I proved you, or I and others have proved that you can win as an independent socialist, you can win a seat by being this category of political leanings, right? Once again, going back to the other thing I said, I wish you would say something like, I proved that you can be like, you could say what you mean and win an office. Say the ideas I actually believe in and win an office. I'd rather her say that. And also the other thing, she got some fucking smoke for these so-called progressives. Like, she said, not left. They're called progressives, quote unquote, whatever that means, right? Basically, she's saying like they're. I'm not sure she's calling them fakers. I think she's calling them insufficient when it comes to the idea that she's going for, and maybe the ideas that they claim they're for. Because of the capitulation to the Democratic Party, which means you're not just shooting yourself in the foot, you're fucking hacksawing it off. That's probably why she's or where she's going with that rhetoric right there, which is interesting, and also based on evidence, makes complete sense. If you're, hey man, solidarity with the Palestinians, but also, I endorse Hakeem Jeffries. They don't go together, right? Doesn't make sense. They don't go together. And that's a situation, once again, that should be an obvious moral thing of like, this is wrong. There's no way around it. It's wrong. From bombs to bullets to starvation, all of it. It's wrong. Even like the testing technology over there as well. It's fucking wrong. And thus, if anyone stands in favor of that, you're not on my team. Get the fuck out of here. And I think she's kind of establishing that, just a little bit more nerdy than me. I'm like middle fingers up. I'm gonna fuck you, bro. Pause. No pause, actually. But yo, Hakeem, you're gonna get fucked, my man. I will spend my time to fuck you over. Get you the fuck out of here. Not corruptly, not sneak peek shit like you little weirdos do. No fucking backdoor fucking sneaky rat shit. To your face, up front, blatantly. I'm gonna do everything I have, everything I can within this seat of power here, seat of political social power, not actual power, but seat of political social power. I'll take every fucking piece of energy I have there and fucking run you the fuck over with it. If I lose, then the people, it is what it is. I lost. Or I took a chance, but I was very direct in where I was going about how bad I think you are at your job. I'll go there. If I get kicked out, I get kicked out. I get assassinated. Fuck me. What a dog shit world we live in. But it's gonna happen. Sorry, Hakeem, you trash can. And that's probably needed. Yeah, no violence being said, but I mean like actual honorable, upfront ways to do things, which is a rarity. And in fact, when I see like political commentators, they say that they almost like skirt around that idea or skip it. Of the idea of like, hey man, being honorable might be the solution to your things instead of like all this dancing and political strategy and Ryan Grimm. Where's your polling data at? Instead of that bullshit, like being upfront and genuine might be actually the actual strategical answer without even being strategical. stress free because you're just being yourself. I'm not avoiding interviews because I'm just being myself anyways. And thus, all of a sudden, I'm available to more people. Look at that. Without even fucking thinking about it so hard. You need shit like that in politics. 100% you need that in politics. Because it's a fucking cesspool of fakers. From politicians, the commentators, to the fucking audience too. All levels. A lot of fakery happening. A lot. Too much. And I'm hoping this lady's legit. I hope she is. But let's get back to this. She has a second portion she wants to say. Here we go.
In every re-election. In fact, AOC, when she first ran for office, she had this quote where she said that it's better to be a one-term Congress member than to sell out. And that's that. I don't think that her subsequent career proves that. But
I didn't know that. Listen, I'm gonna go over that. I'm gonna go over the Glenn Greenwald and AOC interviewed. I'm gonna do a recording on that one. Hopefully today. Actually, I don't know when I'm releasing it, but I'm looking forward to doing that. I wonder if it's said in there because that's fucking interesting. And in fact, that should be like a moral, right? Like, if we're gonna get in there and just compromise everything we're about? What was the point then in the first place? Just to be here long? What's the point? Like, you might as well be like yourself up front on day one. Straight up. But then again, maybe AOC is like full of shit, right? Very distinct idea. It's like, oh, you're like almost like a plant almost. Just saying. Maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe she is being herself. Meaning like, yeah, I was never about that other thing. I just did that to get elected. Anyways, let's apply.
Re-election. In fact, AOC, when she first ran for office, she had this quote where she said that it's better to be a one-term Congress member than to sell out. And that's that. I don't think that her subsequent career proves that. But in reality, that is the approach we used. I did not curry favor with the establishment in order to ensure my re-election. In fact, that is why my every re-election was difficult. But as I've said many times, if your re-election as an elected official is a cakewalk, then you're not fighting for the working class. Because if you are fighting for the working class, and on top of that, you have the temerity to succeed and win something substantive for the working class, then they will absolutely come after you. So expect every re-election to be difficult. But that actually is proof that we are fighting for the working class. And I don't actually buy.
No, it's not. But I get what you mean. But that's too much towards kindergarten right there, Kshama. Right? CNN crapping on Trump all day and night, and we know CNN, a bunch of fucking lying liars over there, right? So that doesn't make Trump good. It's not proof that he's legit. Just saying. But all right, here we go.
Then they will absolutely come after you. So expect every re-election to be difficult. But that actually is proof that we are fighting for the working class.
Not proof.
And I don't actually
It's
buy
some evidence,
that it was because they thought our campaign was weak. No, objectively speaking, this is the strongest challenge that Adam Smith has ever faced. We just won the endorsement of the Stranger newspaper, which is objectively speaking one of the two most significant endorsements in this region. It's the Stranger and the Seattle Times. We've raised $725,000, which is more than 3 times any of his challengers has ever raised in the entire election year. We've raised it just in the primary. We have 8.5 times the number of donors that Adam Smith has in the district. Obviously, he has much more donations because he is funded by Palantir and Lockheed Martin and so on. But the point is that this campaign has a lot of dynamic on the streets. So it's a question of principle. If you as a progressive spokesperson who has a platform, do you think that it is in the interest of the working class and the Palestinian people to support this campaign? It is not a question of, is there polls and all that. Not a single working class person, Glenn, has ever asked me, do you have a poll? What they look at is my track record and the demands we're running on. And they say, hell yes, I want to support this campaign. That's a principled approach to supporting or not supporting our campaign. And that is why I think it's tragic that the DSA leadership decided not to support our campaign, because I don't believe that that decision of not supporting our campaign is in the interests of the Palestinian people and the American working class. So we always have to keep the interests of ordinary people at the center. And regardless of other disagreements, we have to proceed on the basis of what's good for the working class, what's needed for the Palestinian people at this moment. And that's why this campaign is so crucial.
Wow. She is a compelling talker. Okay. Once again, I can personally like hear all the political rhetoric and be like, yum, yum, yum. What do you mean by that? And I need more questions. But still very interesting. Yeah, regular people don't come like, hey, oh, so what's your poll numbers, huh? Like, what? Shut up. But then again, let's say that Ryan Grimm is for real, like he's not a full shit artist. The reason why he's asking for like, is there something substantial here, like when it comes to voters, like when it comes to polling numbers, instead of like principle, right? Instead of like about your ideas. Let's make it about like, hey, are you what's the word? Not sustainable, but whatever. Are you good enough to win this thing based on their polling numbers, right? Based on the voters you get. I mean that it feels like it's so besides the point based on like what people typically mentally go towards when it comes to politics. They go towards whether it's PR or for real. It's still the idea of like, is it morally right or not? Like that seems to be at the core of most of political discussion. They may not say morality, but that seems to be the core of it. You know, sniveling dumpsters say we can't have communism. Might be like a moral issue for him. He could be lying too, to be honest with you. But if he's being for real, it's like, yo, it sounds like a moral issue for you. Like this is morally bad, morally wrong to do to have any type of socialism or communism anywhere in your little fucking country, right? And Ryan Grimm, like it seems like he's like just captured by the that sounds like someone who's captured by the thing that he's claiming to fight, right? The establishment Democrats, right? And we need some progressive candidates in there. You need progressive candidates, but at the same time, you're capitulating to these same people for the sake of like, we need, Daddy, can we win this time, please? Please, Daddy, let us get let me get like at least 1 or 2 more AOCs, please, Daddy. I'll follow your rules. Like that's not how fucking change happens, and I don't mean change in the sense of politics. I mean in period. In life. That's called slavery. Let's be very honest about it. That's called slavery. That's slave think. Master, please. Can I get an extra piece of bread, Master, please? I know you're like immoral for fucking enslaving me, but maybe we can get you to give me a couple pieces of bread, extra pieces of bread, please? Maybe a little less slop for the pigs and give me some instead. I'm hungry, Master, please. That's what it sounds like to me, unfortunately. But these guys have lived good enough social lives to where they might be actually dependent on doing things a certain way. So when the dumb fuck version of the Avengers unite, and it's Breaking Points teaming with fucking Majority Report, teaming with Kyle Kalinske, teaming with whoever, right? Hassan Piker is like the dumb fuck Avengers, basically. Leading you fucking nowhere, seemingly. But anyways, let's play. Here we go.
Yeah, it's funny just to close. One of the reasons why I'm so sympathetic to people who absolutely want nothing to do with the Democratic Party, who believe that even if you go with good intentions, you eventually get commandeered and sucked in, is, I interviewed AOC in 2018 during her primary campaign when almost nobody had even heard of her. I didn't discover her. It was Ryan Grimm who kept nudging me to interview, saying, I think there's this candidate you'd really like. And if you go and watch that interview, you will see an AOC who you will not recognize if you compare.
Once again, did not watch it. When I react, and I say react, I mean I haven't seen this thing. I've not watched this video, but I will be watching that old video with Glenn and AOC for The Intercept. I'll be watching that probably today. if not tomorrow, but probably today. Interesting, huh? All right, here we go.
Compared to the AOC
Maybe Jesse's a
of
fortune
today.
teller. I don't
That
know.
quote that you mentioned was one of her banners. Obviously, she has no intention of following through on that. But also, I remember asking her, when you get to Washington, do you think Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer should continue as leaders of the party, or do you think there's it's need for party leadership? She's like, absolutely. I think that we need new party leadership. And one of the first things she does when she gets to Washington is votes for Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, and then proceeds over the years to jettison almost every single thing she told me in that interview and during her campaign. And the other thing I'll say is, I think there is this kind of like YouTube, Twitch, independent media class, which either for their own interests, career or economic or whatever, but I think more so not to be so jaded. Both parties are really good at scaring their voters. Republicans are, you may hate our leadership, you may hate Mitch McConnell, you may hate, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, but the Democrats are evil communists, and so you better just vote for us and and never consider wandering away.
Not a bad point by Glenn.
And I think the Democrats have done a really good job of that, saying, I know you hate the Democratic Party establishment, but at the end of the day, we're your only hope to protect you. You can try and make us a little bit better if you want with these nice little isolated primaries. And there are a lot of people in this space who consider themselves left-wing radicals or left-wing critics of the Democratic Party.
I hear her typing away in the back. Fucking nerd. She's a fucking hot nerd. Another hot nerd. There we go. Her and Whitney Webb are on the same team. Nerds. Hot nerds. Here we go.
You can try and make us a little bit better if you want with these nice little isolated primaries.
Crude, but
and there are a lot of people in this space who consider themselves left-wing radicals or left-wing critics of the Democratic Party who really just want the Democratic Party to be stronger. And their job is to kind of commandeer this, anger toward the Democratic Party establishment into acquiescence or acceptance. And so they get very angry at people like you who suggest that there's actually a path that you can forge, maybe even a better and more effective path outside of the Democratic Party. Of course, you're going to get a lot of hostility from them because
that's what Crystal sounded like. Because she could have asked way better questions than that to get, that should be part of it, right? Hey, is this going to actually work? Is this doable? Right? Those are worthy questions. Are you for real? Are you authentic? Do you believe in your own ideas? How do we, it's hard to, just trust that off rip because we've been played so many times. So you know what? That question's worthy as well. And also say what say your ideas out loud, right? I want to hear what your ideas are, all of that together. It should be a whole thing. There should be no time limits. None of this bullshit, man. They got plenty of money over there. Crystal has plenty of money to be like, yo, the breaking points, you're not going to do this? All right, fuck it. Let's 1v1 on you. I'll just create a channel real fast and upload a video of me and you having a discussion for as long as it takes to get the fucking answers out that I'm looking for. But these guys don't do that. It's pageantry at best. Pageantry. If you add, once again, to be fair to Crystal, maybe she just has, well, let's say she is this way. Okay, it's just actually yo, your strategy gets in conflict with my strategy. Right? If that's the case, well, up front, go there. Fuck your little journalist. If you believe that, say it. Don't tell her questions one direction, but not the other. Say all of it. What do you say to people that might say this? We know you're saying that, Crystal, or Ryan Grimm. It isn't some fucking, hypothetical person. You're the fucking person that probably has ideas in a certain direction. Why not just fucking say it? But apparently that's a problem. Problem here, apparently. All right, let's apply. There we
go. Who suggests that there's actually a path that you can forge, maybe even a better and more effective path outside of the Democratic Party. Of course, you're going to get a lot of hostility from them because they're Democrats first and foremost. All right, well, Kwasha, it's always great to talk to you. I really find your political career super interesting. It's always great to hear from you. I wish you the best of luck in your election, and we'll definitely continue to follow it and report on it. If people want to check out your campaign, support it, they can go to your website and do so. We'll put the link at the bottom. And I know you took your time on Saturday because we had to cancel the originally scheduled interview. I appreciate your taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I really appreciate it. And just to add to what you were saying, I mean, if it was about polls or viability and all that, why would so many of these podcasters who refused to feature our campaign, why would they have made such a big deal about Marianne Williamson? There was no poll in the world that was saying that Marianne Williamson is going to have any shot at all. So I really think, I mean, I'm just using that as an example to say that.
Or Darlisa Xavier, you know, or Milo in Colorado. I mean, here you have Kshama Sawant, who has had a success in running citywide and winning elections against very powerful forces. You're at least as credible, I would say, far more so than most of the people who end up being successful primary challengers, certainly more than AOC was. So,
exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's literally nobody who has won 4 elections as an independent socialist, let alone won historic victories like the nation's highest minimum wage and so on. And so that's why, I hope if you're listening, if you're watching this, please make sure that if you're in the 9th Congressional District in Washington State, make sure you're turning your ballot by August 4th. And if you're in the area, please come out and canvass with us. Go to kshamasawant.org to sign up for any shift. It's really, really important.
All right, Kshama, thank you once again. Great.
Okay. So, listen, in the world of politics, and when it comes to politicians, if you've watched this channel, I'm quite skeptical. With good reason. I think you might understand why there's good reason behind being skeptical. But I will say this. Once again, there's no endorsement happening here. There's none of that shit's happening. It's more of a curiosity and like, what is this lady? There's more questions to be asked, right? They're like, what do you mean by this or that, Kshama? How good is your diagnosis of the problem that's in front of you, right? Is it strictly working class versus billionaire? Is that the actual thing? Because I hear that rhetoric quite a bit. I do. But there's been people that use that rhetoric and play their audience with it or their constituents with it, right? They trick them by using certain rhetoric. Not saying she's doing that or that you're doing that if she ever heard this video somehow. But I will say, I've had the pee for the last hour and a half, and I said, "Fuck it." Sometimes there's videos where I actually like just mute up and just walk away, go take a piss and come back, right? Or go get like a fucking Canada Dry or something and come back, right? But I'm like, it's interesting, it's super interesting. I know it's not so palatable for maybe younger people. I don't know. I don't want to say younger people. Maybe it's not so palatable for people that are used to content being a certain way. Of like, oh my god, here's a 15-minute video. I can watch this, in between, during my coffee break a bit, and then be done with it, right? And then feel like at least get the feeling like, oh my god, I'm informed. I feel informed, right? Maybe there could be mindsets like that, unfortunately. But for me, it's like, I find it compelling, very compelling. Of not her strategy for making the world a better place, but more so maybe she actually does care to make the world a better place. That might actually be the thing that I think is compelling to me. Or she might not be a faker. Now, here's the thing. I plan on doing the AOC video, the Glenn Greenwald AOC from 2018 for the Intercept. I plan on doing that or reacting to that interview. And if that sounds the exact same as this, I have to come back to Kshama and be like, yo, well, this person said they were like this, but like you're saying you're the real deal too. Maybe you're faking. Which I would ask anyways. I wouldn't ask it that way. I'd be asking questions to find out, hey, are you a faker? You full of shit? Not saying that's certainty, just saying it has to be attempted, right? At the very least, it has to be attempted. Otherwise, what the fuck are we doing here? But interesting, and I'm curious. But I also doubt it. This lady speaks in such detail and like even like the little in between words sound more towards authentically believing in an idea. That could be wrong, right? To be fair, but once again, very interesting video. And my advice to Kshama, my personal advice, would be: I get your political rhetoric, and I get the ideas you want to push forward. If, like, say she's for real, right? I get that. If you want to push that direction, I get that for what you want, right? But it's me personally, and even her, the idea of like connecting with right-leaning people or quote unquote Republicans, whatever you want to call it. With that, you'd have to clear the room of full of shit artists first. That has to happen first. And she may be doing that just by happenstance. Like, hey, this guy doesn't believe in, Medicare for all. Adam Smith doesn't believe in, rights for Palestinians, right? Just by default, you're calling him full of shit, right? But I would want that but more on purpose, more so on purpose. Like, make that the point. Like, yo, this guy's full of shit, and whether you like my politics or not, I believe in what I'm saying. That guy doesn't. He plays games. He plays games with his constituents. He does PR moves. He does campaign fucking commercials. Like, gets funded by these other assholes to make those things. Like, he's full of shit. He's not actually a Democrat. There you go. Like, people like, what did Glenn say earlier? 70 to 30% voted Kamala Harris in that district. Was it is either her or was Glenn that said that, right? 70 to 30% voted for Kamala Harris. Now, what happens if you're like, yo, Kamala Harris is not actually a Democrat? You guys in this 9th district of Washington, right? You guys call yourself Democrats, right? Got it. But what if the thing that you believe you are, those guys are nowhere fucking near? They're not that thing. You think you're doing the right thing or have the right policies to making your lives and people around you better. But these guys are not actually keeping that in mind. They're lying about it and almost using you as a green light, as an okay to maintain power and do criminal shit with it. Which means they're not you. They're not Democrats. They're not liberal. They're not conservative. They're not Republican. They're foolish. They're pathological. They're out of their fucking minds and full of shit. If you say, hey man, the people of Gaza, they need they need help. And if someone can pay you to not think that anymore, or not think that. If someone can pay you to not say that anymore, whether it's money pay or a promising future of power, social, political power, or whatever, that is called pathology. That means you're out of your mind. That's a crazy person. I know it's normalized on planet Earth, from entertainment to people viewing things society-wise, right? It sounds normal. Like, hey, that's normal. Or there's a lot more crazy on planet Earth than you fucking realize. The actual tenets of, like, you're out of your fucking mind shit, like, that is part of it. That is it right there. Or sorry, that is a portion of that. Behavior like that is a part of that. Like, certifiably, like, based on the way I view psychology, certifiably out of their fucking minds. It's not rational. It's not fucking, doesn't actually, it makes sense in a way, like, society wise, like, oh, this guy, yeah, he took the money, so now he's corrupt. Got it. But in my humble opinion, in reality, you're actually out of your fucking minds. And until that shit is gone from seats of power, until that's gone, expect what you expect. What's the saying? Is it like insanity is a perfectly healthy response to an insane world? I get why that makes sense. and the absurdity of what these politicians do. Not all of them, if I had to guess. Not all of them. But those actions they're out of their fucking minds. I'll tell you right now. The corruption, they are out of their fucking minds. These are crazy people. But I'll leave it there. I will leave it there. That should be number one goal right there. But either way, there's your video. Please subscribe. If you feel like, comment, agree or disagree. Let it be known in the comment section what you think. You think Kshama's legit? Are you hopefully healthily skeptical? As I'm like, hey, if I see you fuck up, Kshama, I'm letting it fly, man. We can't take the risk of things going sideways or, once again, a genocide happening. We can't take the risk of you being our future president if you're out of your fucking mind, right? We can't risk it. So thus, the questions should be warranted for anyone, for me too, for anyone that claims to be legit or for real. They should be able to be questioned hardcore. But yeah, tell me in the comment section what you think. Don't forget to share, support, hopefully donate to all the links in the description box. Also, please check out the Discord link if you want to join that. I'm in that Discord right now. All pins are welcome. And obviously, the things I showed you so far, they will also be linked in that description box for you to look at on your own and study and rabbit hole and all that good stuff. Most importantly, with all that said, give this video a thumbs down. Wee.